One question that I've received a lot about Tonex, both software and pedal, is just what the heck does that gain control do within our preset on our tone model? Now, it's obvious that that gain block cannot react like the gain block of whatever amp we've modeled. That's just not possible. Tonex is sending a series of test tones through that amp to kind of capture that snapshot of what that amp is set at that time, but does it in a way that if we roll our guitar volume back, that it's going to clean up and act in the same way that the amp would if we rolled our guitar volume back or turned it up or hit the front with a boost pedal of some sorts. So that's great, but I did a video a while back actually doing a comparison of how the different controls in the amp react compared to a real amp, just more as a fun experiment, not to try to prove that it is acting the same way as the amp it's modeling. I never thought it could do that, and I don't think it would be reasonable to expect it to in the way that the models are captured. But what is that gain knob doing? Well, if we go over to the IK Multimedia manual for both Tonex software and Tonex pedal, it says this. First off, for Tonex software, it says gain sets the input gain of the tone model from 0 to 10, resulting in more or less saturation. Coming over to Tonex pedal manual, it says gain adjusts the tone model's input gain. Use this parameter to saturate more or less your tone model. So it would seem from that the gain control is simply adjusting the input level of what's hitting the front of the amp. And as we all know, what input level we send into an amp is going to have a very dramatic outcome on how that amplifier reacts, or in this case, the tone model reacts. If we hit it with more signal, we're going to get more saturation and gain. If we hit it with less signal, we're going to get less. In fact, it's the same thing as turning our guitar volume down to clean an amp model up. And Tonex does a great job of doing this. So in my video talking about the global input trim control on Tonex pedal, where I said, we really need to pull this back to have it react more like the guitar signal that's actually being fed into it. And I still stand by that, knowing things that I know about the pedal that maybe some other folks aren't aware of yet. But when I did talk about the global input trim, a lot of folks said to me, well, I wish I had that not just as a global setting, but as an actual per preset setting so that I could save that as a part of my preset and then recall it every time I recall that preset. Well, it would seem to me we can, and the gain control of our amp block in our tone model or our preset is what is going to control the per preset input gain. Now, you may not want to take my word for it. Well, how could we prove this? Well, today I'm going to do my best to prove it to anybody out there who may be skeptical to just take my word for it or take the manual's word for it. We're going to do some null tests, and we're going to compare the little input slider at the bottom of Tonex, which we know is controlling the actual input level of what's being fed to our signal chain and hitting the front of our tone model. And we're going to compare that to the gain knob and see if we can't prove once and for all that these two things are actually identical. And then that would allow folks to have a little peace of mind knowing that they can set their input level per preset simply by using the gain knob. So today we're going to be using Reaper to do this. Let's head over to Reaper and see if we can't get this all straightened out. Okay, so here I am in Reaper, and you'll notice that I have two tracks. These are identical tracks. I'm going to prove that to you. You'll notice I have effects on here with Tonex, but right now it's bypassed, so they're not on. So what you're actually going to hear if I play this is just a little track that I recorded, DI, guitar, straight into Reaper, and then I duplicated the track. So what we'll do here is if we flip the phase on one of these tracks, we will see down here that we will end up with a perfect null, and that's proving that these are identical right now. So let's do that. So right now we see we're hovering around minus 23.6 on our meters for our average, peaking up here at around minus 10.6. As soon as I flip the phase on one of these tracks, I end up at minus infinity because now we have a perfect null. That proves that these two tracks are identical. All right, so let's stop that. Let's come into our effects now, and I'm going to engage both of these sets of effects. Now, what you'll see I have here on track 1 is an instance of Tonex with one of my favorite tone models that I've created, and this is available at a link below if you're interested in this tone. It's been by far my most popular tone. It's a tone model based off the Dr. Z Z-Rack Jr. amp, and it's absolutely spectacular. I've been having so much fun playing through this. And there'll also be a free version of it available down at ToneNet at the link below as well if you want to grab that to sample it out, and if you want to grab the full bundle and help support my channel channel. That's always greatly appreciated. But what I'm using here is JS rect Z alt 2, and you'll notice I have the same thing down here. So you'll notice here on my input and output, I'm set to 0. Same thing up here. Sorry, I can't fit everything on the screen all at once, but 0, 0. So everything is identical between these two particular tracks. Now, if I go back and play these tracks without the phase reversed, we will hear a loud version of these two tracks summed together. You see down here, our peaks are now up to like minus 3.7. Our RMS is around minus 14-ish. Now, if I flip the phase on one of these, again, we get a perfect null. So this is great. You might be asking, okay, so what? That just proves that these two tracks are identical. And that is correct. They are. So we have that proven, but that has to be done to set kind of a baseline here. So here's the theory now. If we keep the phase flipped so that these are actually canceling out, you'll see the output is 0, but we still have the two tracks playing. And again, if I go back and I flip this back, we have our tracks there, right? Each playing the identical thing. So no trickery going on here. So what would prove what this gain level is doing is if we were to boost this gain up on one utilizing the gain control and then boost the input level up using the input level control on the other, if we could get them to pretty much cancel out again, it would prove that the input level and the gain knob are doing the exact same thing. Let's try that. Let's come over to this input knob here and add, let's say, 12 dB to it. Now you can hear we get this awful tone. This is not the sound of this tone. This is just the sound of the combination of two different sounds now. And they're obviously not nulling well at all. But now, can I match that by raising this gain knob up? Let's see. What you'll see there is I got to my maximum 10. Now, it isn't a perfect null. Mind you, it's really darn close to it. Minus 72.1. Now, you might say, well, why can't you get it to null more perfectly? Well, what if I come over here and say, let's go up 12.1? Well, that actually makes it a little bit worse. Well, what about the other way, 11.9? That makes it even worse. So the best we can get here is 12 to match the full gain. Now, if I crank my studio monitors up, you're not going to be able to hear this. I have to go very high before I can even perceive this little minus 74 difference. Now, you might ask, why is it not nulling perfectly? It's a very good explanation for that. This here is just giving us a number that's kind of meaningless, right? 10. 10 what? But it's just giving us a number that kind of acts like we would see on the front of a guitar amp. Turn it up to 10, turn it up to 7. But there's no real reference to what that actually represents. Down here, I'm assuming this is boosting 12 dB. The problem is I can only go in 1/10 of a dB increments. If we were able to move this in hundreds, I can almost guarantee you we would get a perfect null here. And I've done this in other null tests I've done before. Null tests are extremely sensitive to volume differences. So 1/10 of a dB is not enough to get a perfect null. But if we could go, say to 12.11, which unfortunately Tonex doesn't allow us to do, it just brings us back to 12.1. If I was to try to go, 12.16, again, now it just rounds up to 12.2. So it's not giving us a fine enough measurement to get the perfect null, but I have no doubt in my mind, if I could, that this would definitely null out, really proving that the input level here is really doing the same thing as the gain knob. Well, let's go the other way now. Let's cut this by minus 15 and see if we can't roll this gain back to get a similar result. Right there at 2.1. Now, there's a good example. When I'm at 2 here, I'm getting a null of a minus 48.9 on my RMS. When I go to 2.1, that drops down to minus 71.5. So see how sensitive this actually is. Let's see what happens when we go by 1/10 of a dB. Right now, we're hovering here around minus 71.5. Let's move this to minus 14.9. Isn't that incredible? This now jumps to minus 64, minus 63.8. what a huge difference for a 0.1 dB change here. If I change this by 0.2 dB, we're now up at minus 59.8. So these 1/10 of a dB changes make a dramatic difference on the null. So I think you can see now why I'm saying if I could adjust this by the hundredths or thousandths of a dB, I'm pretty much convinced I could get these to null perfectly. All right, so there you have it. I think that that's pretty much about as close as possible to proving that the input level and the gain control on our tone model amp block are doing the exact same thing. So if you were looking for a per preset input trim, that is it. It's going to be your gain block. If you want to adjust that downwards, save it as a preset, then you do so. All you're doing is you're adjusting the input that's hitting the front of that particular tone model block, much in the same way you would be with the input control, and in a lot of ways like the global input trim control on your Tonex pedal. So I hope that that clears that up, and I hope that that kind of puts that to bed and puts it to rest so that everybody can have some peace of mind in knowing what they're actually doing. So just like the manual says, if we boost that gain or that input level of what's hitting our tone model, we're going to saturate the amp more or less. That's neither good nor bad. It all depends on what you want. I hope that was helpful. I hope that clears that up, and I hope everybody's kind of satisfied with that little test. Again, I know the null wasn't perfect, but I think my explanation for that, as far as the fineness of the ability to tune the input level, would sort that out if we had the ability to do that. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm going to leave you with a demo video of my Rect Z Ultimate Tone Model Bundle. I think you're going to enjoy this. The links are below for the free one up on ToneNet, and also for the full bundle. It's available on my website, and I really do appreciate if you guys grab that and help support the channel. Helps me to keep being able to do these videos and hopefully give people some information that's going to help them get the most out of their Tonex software and Tonex pedal. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in. Please like the video, share it with anybody who you think would get some use or enjoyment out of watching, and also please subscribe to the channel. Hit the little bell notification to get notified when I put new content out. I'll be back really soon with some more. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in. Ciao for now.